Today, I want to give you 10 tips for success with writing a book or being an entrepreneur from home. It takes dedication and perseverance. So, for most of this will pertain to being a writer since I'm an author, but you can use it for also being an entrepreneur. So, the first step is to read extensively in your genre, outside your genre, just read. The most important thing is to internalize plot structure in your mind, flow of sentences, grammar. It's really a make or break deal. So it's that important. So that was my first top tip. The second one is also equally important, as really all of these are, but writing regularly, or as if you're an entrepreneur, working on your project. Let's say you're working a full-time job and you hope to quit someday. You need to establish your business on solid ground before you just jump right into that. So that goes with writing as well. So it starts with making sure that you schedule regular time every single day to write. It doesn't matter if you're writing in a journal, just write. But more importantly, if you are trying to write a book, then writing on your book, on your manuscript, use your time effectively and write on your manuscript. So I have other videos that I'm going to make about plotting and the importance of that. But there are plotters and pantsters. Some people write by the seat of their pants. Other people actually plot out their manuscript beforehand, and some people are more of a hybrid method, which is probably what I do. I am a plotter, but I allow myself some creative freedom, and some of those are my best scenes. So, and with being an entrepreneur, making sure that you are writing good sales copy and post on social media. And so writing is still part of being an entrepreneur. You just really can't get away from that. So anyway, writing regularly also helps you find your voice, and it kind of hones in on who your customer is. I have an exact picture of who my customer is for my books. And whenever I'm writing any kind of ad copy or any kind of post, even, I have that customer, um, in mind when I write that. So it doesn't mean that you're locked into just that. You can have secondary audiences, and other people will read your work or buy your products, but the majority of your audience, you need to know who that group is. So that brings us to our third one, is finding your voice. So your voice is what makes you stand out from everybody else. A lot of people don't really understand what this means, but if you pick up a book and you're just immediately drawn in, and this writer is really creative, let's say, with the way she says her sentences, not so much describing plot in the greatest detail, but how does she describe plot? Do you feel like you're there? In my books, my mission, and it actually just happens accidentally, but I am told over and over again that my setting becomes a plot in my book, and I just think that's really, really cool because it's a character itself. So, that kind of gives you an idea about voice, and there are some voices from authors that you can connect to immediately, and some not so much. So your brand is also tied into your voice. So your brand encompasses a whole different, different setup. Like it's a entity of itself. And I cannot discuss all of that in this video, so I'll need to make another video, maybe just talking about brand. But for now, establishing your voice through writing every day, or if you're an entrepreneur, creating sales copy every single day. uh, when you're utilizing social media posts, try to get your voice in those posts, and let the people actually get to know who you are as a person. That is part of your brand. So um The fourth one is edit and revise. So everybody I've heard people say, "Oh, writing a book is so hard." It's not so much as writing the book that's hard. It's the real work comes when you have to edit your book. So there are different, again, ways to do this. Some people write precisely, they edit every sentence as they write it. I prefer to just get it down on paper. I kind of have my plot structure here. I know where I'm going. And I find that by me more free writing, as long as I'm in the parameters of my plot, then I it kind of allows that creative, authentic author voice to come out as opposed to if I'm just editing every single sentence. And then after sometimes after I will write let's say a chapter, before I start the next day, I might go back and either reread it or I might reread the ending part of it so I know, boom, right where I left off and I can keep going. That's another beauty of writing every day because if, let's say, you write once a month, you're not going to remember what you've written in chapter one if you're on chapter 20. And, by writing every single day, you're going to get into that flow and remember exactly where you left off. So, definitely, that is a benefit. So, editing, if you're going to self publish, please, oh, please hire an editor. We always think our work is so great, but after you have the knowledge and expertise of other people reading your work, they can understand, what is not making sense in your book, maybe scenes that need to be moved. Then there are editors that look for line editing, grammar, punctuation. So I personally believe if you're going to self-publish, maybe hire a couple of different editors to do developmental editing, let's say, and then also to do line editing. Again, I can create other videos about this if people are interested. Just let me know in the comments. So, just getting an editor to look at your work and give you feedback. I usually have beta readers read it, more like alpha readers read my work just to kind of let me know how the scenes are all flowing and if they like the story and if things need to be moved around. Then when I think it's in really good shape, I will send it to an editor and have them edit my book before I even send it to my agent. And before my agent pitches it to publishers, I want it to be in the best shape. It is hard to get an agent, and it's probably even harder to get an agent than it is a publisher. So you want to put your best work forward. So think about that. It's definitely worth the money to do this because I hired a really awesome retired editor from Random House, and she made all the difference in my writing. She leveled me up by making suggestions and in really just digging in deep into the bones of my books. And the last two books that I have written were picked up by a traditional publishing house, so like a medium-sized house, which is really pretty good starting out. So my next one, I've written my next book. It's out being shopped among publishers by my agent. I also hired an editor before I even sent it to her. Some agents will help you with the editorial process, and some of them aren't as hands-on. So, especially in the beginning, when you first get an agent or trying to get an agent, really consider hiring an editor. So, number 5 we kind of touched on is know your audience, know who they are, what they like to read, what kind, what level of heat. So I write contemporary romance, kind of romantic women's fiction, and you have to know the level of heat that your customer can handle. You don't want to, if you're, let's say, writing Christian fiction, you wouldn't want to put a lot of sex scenes in there. I mean, you need to know what publisher you're targeting, what agent you're targeting, and what reader you're targeting. This is really crucial. So, number 6 is really important. Show, don't tell. This also kind of plays into your voice because have you ever read an author that just grabs you and you don't know why? She's probably showing and not telling. She's not telling what she's eating. She's describing, the flavor of it or how it looks on the plate. Tap into your five senses and put those on the pages. You don't need to overdo the 5 senses because that could be tiring as well, but putting yourself actually in your manuscript and thinking, "What is my character seeing? What am I seeing if I'm in this story?" And then describe it from that point of view because likely then you'll be showing. So that's another really important step. That's a make or break deal in the publishing world and with your readership. So, also number 7, practicing empathy, creating authentic characters. I remember when I hired that Random House editor, she said, "Lori, you are keeping a distance from your readers. You need to be a little more vulnerable and include them into the feelings that your character is experiencing and make it real. Don't just gloss over it." And I still, to this day, catch myself doing that somewhat. And during my second draft, that's usually when I target it because my first draft, I'm just trying to write it, get get my story out there because if you don't have a story on the page, then you can't edit anything. So I try to get my story out there on the page and then I go back and I start catching things like using my 5 senses, describing things more because I am a very succinct writer. I don't put a lot of fluff and glossy words in my manuscript, so I often have to go back and add my senses and add more of the setting, which, like I said, that part comes naturally for me, the setting, but sometimes I have to go back in and just describe it a little more, describe the character's reaction to what's going on. And you don't have to have everything just perfect in that first draft. That's not really what how I see that first draft. I see that as more of my second draft. And then usually my third draft is really about a couple go throughs of the book, but I'm really looking at a lot of things, like grammar, punctuation, flow of the book. Does everything just move smoothly? Is it interesting? I try to, by this point, I'm hoping that I don't have anything boring in there, but you know, so really I probably do 5 or 6 drafts if you count separate all of that out, but I usually say it's 3 drafts. Also, another important step is to, on the Word, there's a way that you can have it read it aloud back to you. And I've always heard people say, "Oh, read your story to yourself," but my eye still skips over words. I think I had titled instead of tilted, and my eye probably would have just scanned right over that and I wouldn't have caught it. But when Word was reading it back to me, when it said tilted, I just kind of jolted. And I'm reading the words in my mind along with Word reading it out loud to me. And I can catch those little mistakes. So, again, you want your manuscript to be in the best possible shape that you can get it in. So, before you submit it to anybody or self publish. So, number 8 is being concise. I was just telling you how I am concise. A lot of people have the opposite problem where they put too many words on the page. They're trying to describe so much and it slows the story down. So it needs to be this healthy balance to where you're in the character's head, but things are still moving forward using dialogue. Even if you, in women's fiction, they use a lot of narrative for character development, but there still needs to be things happening or moving forward. So, conflict and tension is your friend in writing. We don't like that in our personal lives, but it needs to be on the page. Number 9 is accepting feedback. So when your beta readers give you feedback, when your editors give you feedback, try really hard not to get defensive. They are there trying to help you. And sometimes, it might come across wrong or you might disagree with it. If you strongly disagree with what they're saying, then you can certainly not make those changes. But if two or three different people are telling you the same thing, you need to really think about what they're saying. But try not to take things personally or get mad at the person giving you feedback because it may be what you need to hear. And there are different ways to say it, of course, but sometimes over writing, like if you're using track changes on words for edits, sometimes things can come across wrong, in a bad way. So always remember that you're asking for this person's help. Always think your beta readers, always think anybody who's editing your book, because it's a hard job and they're trying to level you up and make you the best writer. And if you don't believe that your editor is trying to lift you up and they don't believe in you, then it might be time to get a new editor. But I have never come across this. And I remember one time somebody did edit this piece of work I had that I just thought I had learned everything that, you know, I have implemented most of everything that I was being taught by this person, and they edited it. It took me about a month to get over it. I wasn't mad or upset. I just needed time to process what they were saying because they were big changes. But in the end, that editor was right. That's why they are professionals. They have experience that I don't necessarily have in the big book world. So trusting your editor is crucial and not taking things personally. If you want to be in the writing world, you are going to have to accept feedback, and it's not always easy feedback. Sometimes you have to go back and make some heavy, big changes. So, as being an entrepreneur, you also need these same skills in getting feedback with your products and how you can improve yourself. How can you improve your products? So, having a mentor or a coach is also really important. I do pay for a coach. In fact, I also am taking classes on, you know, making this my full time focus. They teach totally different things. One is more focused on bettering myself in marketing, and one is more focused on, creating YouTube videos and how to develop the business plan of that. But they both work together and they both have sort of the same beliefs. So don't be afraid to hire a coach, because if you want this as a career and you want to level up, and if you want this bad enough, you're going to need to seek out professionals who are already doing this and the lay of the land. So it's dangerous if you think you know everything and that you're just going to pop it up on uh Amazon when you're done and you don't need to make changes, because that's very dangerous thinking if you want this to be your long-term career. Also, sales are very important, because if you ever do want to do traditionally published, go that route, they will look at your sales from your self-published work. So keep that in mind, because if your numbers are low and on those first books that you've published, I actually lost a book contract for that reason. So just words of words of wisdom there. So number 10 is stay persistent. There are days where I'll get a rejection letter and it will just derail my mood, and I'll think, why am I doing this? I've been doing this since 2009. What am I doing? Am I wasting my time? And I'll go down this negative tunnel. But I have decided to allow myself at least 24 hours to process the rejection. You take however long you need to do that. But I find that I'll wallow in this, self-destruction, afterwards. So I have to limit it to 24 hours. The next day I pick myself back up and I'm thinking, come on, you can do this. You've been doing this. Your readers are waiting for your next book, and, let's give it to them. Come on, you can do this. So I do a lot of self-talk after I get a rejection. We all get rejections. Even the top performing authors or entrepreneurs, they get rejection. It's Somebody told me, like Debbie McCummer once told me at a conference, she said the only difference between a published writer and an unpublished writer is the unpublished writer quit. So keep going and keep doing your self-talk to lift yourself up. So just remember, becoming a skilled writer takes a lot of practice. It's like peeling an onion, and there's just layer after layer after layer after layer. And sometimes I kind of joke around saying that if I had known all these layers and all this work involved, maybe I just would have never pursued this career, which is ridiculous because writing is in my heart. I have stories I need to get out, and the stories just won't leave me alone. It feeds my soul to come up with creative ideas when I'm writing stories. It really just taps into that creativity, and I love entertaining people with my stories. It just thrills me when I get positive feedback from my readers that they just love the book or they couldn't put it down. That's the best compliment you can give an author, by the way. So, just remember it takes time. Be patient with yourself. Keep going. Seek out coaches, seek out people to help you along the way. Try not to reinvent the wheel from the beginning, and join writers groups. Same thing with entrepreneurs. You join groups, get out there and learn community and build that community. I have a video on that. So, just I wish you the best success. And until next time, please like and subscribe. Please put comments in the comment section because I love that. And until next time, keep going forward, keep moving forward one day at a time.